In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill. I promised I'd go back there someday. But I never did. Well, I'm alone here now. Waiting in my console or my computer, staring blankly at an empty document. Waiting for the answer to my question to come. But it never does. Silent Hill 2. That title on its own says a lot, doesn't it? This game, more than almost any other game ever released, has been critically analyzed, pondered upon, beard tugged, chin scratched, and been super wrong about by millions across the globe. Everybody has an opinion about this game, and it came out over 2 decades ago. And here's the thing. I don't really want to talk about it at all. Every idea has been discovered, every nuance traced, every clue found, every theory crafted, and every criticism logged. There's nothing left to discover here. Everyone knows that James is a bad person, but does that disqualify him for redemption or forgiveness? Everyone knows that Maria is wrapped up in the existential question of what it really means to be alive or to find a purpose for yourself. Everyone knows that apparently Masahiro Ito told Twitter that Mary's body is in the back seat of the car after being corrected from it being in the trunk. You can find exhaustive analysis about the story of Silent Hill 2 in any medium on the planet. I'm sure we could make scrawlings on a cave wall about how once there was a hole here and now there is not, and the aliens that find our planet can also experience the brief bone chill that such an ominous statement portends. But this game came out 22 years ago. And at least as many horror games have since come out for people to enjoy, but do any of them elevate the storytelling presented in Silent Hill 2? Surely one must, right? Right? Silent Hill 2 was the anticipated follow-up to the game that pioneered the way psychological, atmospheric horror games would be made for years to come. Silent Hill. Silent Hill 2, made largely by the same team as the original, often referred to as Team Silent, came out in 2001 for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox, and somehow a box labeled Silent Hill 2, but actually just contained a box of paper clips and a couple rubber bands arrived for the personal computer later that year. It features James Sunderland as No. You know what? You know what this friggin' game is about. I'm not explaining it to you. The topic being explored today is to examine games that have come out exhibiting some form of inspiration or innovation from this horror darling. And you know what's hilarious? This script, as was just said, was supposed to be a sort of review of literature of games that have tried to elevate or even just attempt to have the same style of storytelling. But then I began to ask, why am I even doing this? I realized I wanted to try and talk about games that have succeeded Silent Hill 2 narratively hard and mechanically relatively easy. Then it became yet another meaningless effort of dissecting the same 9 things everyone always talks about with this game. And then finally, something clicked. I wasn't really interested in talking about all these other games, and I wasn't bringing anything new to the table analytically, at least I don't think so. I just wanted to try and finally sort out my tumultuous relationship to this prickly artifact of a video game. So I guess I was lying. I guess I did want to talk about Silent Hill 2. I actually conceived of the title of this video, Chasing Mary, during the first paragraph of writing. Believing the Mary being chased was a story as impactful and meaningful as Silent Hill 2 provided back in 2001, something I believe that has now happened, by the way, but really, The Mary being chased was my own brain. A final resolution for what my own opinion is of Silent Hill 2. I do have a confession to make. The reason I made this video is because I don't like Silent Hill 2. I really don't. When I discovered Silent Hill, it was off of Let's Plays back in 2007. 8? 7. 8? No, 7. 2007. And then I decided I would go to play them myself, back when getting old games was not the sole experience of venture capitalists and speculators. And I played these games, and all these years later, I formed opinions about the franchise, and Silent Hill 2 was something I just never understood. I don't like most of the levels. I don't like any of the puzzles. All the gameplay is so flat, barely requiring you to use any ammunition until the final sections of the game or the off chance of a boss fight. All the Pyramid Head sections are obtuse and flat out silly. Moving around with Maria is a chore.
I'll wait here. I hate bowling.
There's an elevator that only has a weight capacity for exactly James Sunderland and no one else. What is the purpose of this elevator? How did anyone at the hotel use it? This is the dumbest act of symbolism ever conceived of. It is, who made this? Who the fuck? I can quote from Eddie's stupid boss fight. I will laugh about the way Troy Baker seriously asks Eddie why he can just sit there and eat pizza in those hilarious remasters. I will even occasionally offer my finest impression of Angela when someone says they have lost something.
Lost?
I looked up Silent Hill 2 essays. I like watching people get to the house on fire scene, see the bed daddies, see Pyramid Head's introduction, and even the rare chance for someone to hear the whispers in the apartment or the horrifying noise in the basement. And of course, I still think There Was a Hole Here, It's Gone Now is one of the most effective pieces of environmental storytelling ever implemented, and they did it in 2001. But I just cannot shake the feeling that playing this game, actually playing it, is repulsive to me. I don't know how to reconcile this, but I think I can take a note from the characters of Silent Hill 2, who all failed to learn this lesson in the game so that they could impart it unto me. Sometimes, things just cannot resolve in a way that is satisfying. I will, personally, probably just be conflicted about Silent Hill 2 forever. But I won't let it consume me the way Eddie's ostracization, Angela's abuse, and Maria's unasked-for birth consumed them. Sometimes I think Silent Hill 2's relatively unsubtle yet nuanced use of symbolism and, analogy, I guess, lends to the unspoken truth about mainstream video games and the stories in them that are still hamstrung by a lot of detractors. For instance, vocal delivery gets ridiculed rather than analyzed. Famously, people like to claim Silent Hill 2's dub is highly stylized, but according to the director, it wasn't. That doesn't take away from the ethereal quality or the dreamlike space people feel from it either. Games that do not cost $69.99 do often have interesting stories, but in a flip scenario, do not often have access to the time and resources to tell the story in the best way they can. If criticizing male hero worship in the house on fire scene near the end is the peak of writing in the game, then let's just hand Undertale a Pulitzer Prize. Not that I don't love Angela's character. I was also never particularly inspired by Maria, to say the least. Mechanically, she is frustrating, and narratively, even more frustrating. And here's the crux of it all. Mary, the motivating force behind three major characters, including James, Laura, and Maria. The reason the game is happening at all is so barely a character that the revelation about James's act of murdering his wife is left as a surprising plot twist. Not as a tragic twisting of the knife, which is how it should be, right? Mary is given life by her infamous letter and the incredible delivery by her actress, but the game doesn't do much to develop her at all. I'd like to take this time to specifically call out one of the games that inspired me to write these thoughts. One of the best games from last year, Signalis, developed largely by two people, this game, and I'll put my critical credentials on the line for this, will compete in legacy with the giant that is Silent Hill 2 in terms of games discussion. Not only is the story more modern, but it warrants more discussion by how willfully obfuscated reality is. In Silent Hill 2, we discover the nightmare-like horrors James is experiencing are just that, nightmares, projected from his own internal conflict about the fate of his wife. In Signalis, you're never quite sure, because nothing is ever really presented as reality to begin with. It is a large tone poem held together with a non-linear passage of time, and for that, it is truly beautiful. As I've cobbled the script together, and throughout the entire production process, I kept returning to the question that I later discovered was the core of this whole piece. Why bother? Why do I care about Silent Hill 2 in this way? Why do I see parallels in so many games that have come out since? Why do I want to talk about this game so badly? I've listened to videos and podcasts, read essays and think pieces. I've consumed so much about this game, and yet I've never really returned to it in earnest since I played it as a teenager on my Game Crazy used copy that I bought from a Blockbuster. Back when they were together, the good old days. In some ways, maybe it's a wonderful metatextual development. I, too, am Jane Sunderland, returning to not a game I once loved, but a point in time when I was discovering so much about myself and learning how to appreciate media more deeply. I maintain that Silent Hill 2, as a video game, is deeply flawed. I don't view it as the masterwork that so many others do. But all of this has reminded me that art, no matter how frictional or abrasive or downright offensive, just sticks with you sometimes. And what's even funnier, I played through some of the enhanced edition of Silent Hill 2 on PC so that I could have high quality footage and B-roll to use for the video aspect of this piece. And also just to try one final time to familiarize myself with the world and the game. The sentences following this encapsulates my experience. So, I thought it would be more concise, but I actually decided after starting the playthrough, it would be best to break this down area by area. Fun fact, everything you just read was written before I had started the playthrough, and then left that sentence hanging so I could write down my thoughts here. But things took a turn. So here we go. I did this to better articulate where my specific issues lie with the game. So, the beginning. The walk up to Silent Hill. This is one of the most effective openings to a video game ever, period. And it is quite literally a downward slope from there. Nothing is as effective as the 10 or so minute walk through the dilapidated walkway, through the cemetery and meeting Angela, and into the now abandoned town of Silent Hill. Wandering through the streets while being accosted by the patients who will sometimes scurry away like insects and make their horrible little noise is a truly terrifying ordeal. And there's so many little graffitis and environmental stories to be told and implied, and the beginning of the game is just very special in this capacity. It really allows you to wander, you can find items and things like that. And just as like a tone setting, I have a hard time thinking of anything that does it better than that walk up to the town, finding the apartment key, and walking in. The apartments, however, are often held up as a shining beacon of Silent Hill 2's whole deal. And it's the first level, how kind. Taking you through a 4-building apartment complex and introducing you to the rest of the lost souls you'll encounter for the rest of the game, this area is an incredible way to introduce an adventure-style psychological horror game. I'm very careful to not call Silent Hill survival horror because I don't think it really is. You're not really surviving or managing any resources. All things are just as susceptible to your lead pipe as they are a bullet. So I always try to demarcate the Silent Hill games as specifically unlike Resident Evil. Resident Evil, of course, coined the term survival horror, and I've always viewed Silent Hill as specifically not that. While they may have been trying to take the initial concept, by the time Silent Hill 2 came out, they had fully decided against using things in that way. You're not really managing an inventory. It's way more focused on atmosphere and narrative than a survival horror typically is. So that's just a little bit more explanation of why I don't call Silent Hill survival horror and why you shouldn't either. The next level takes you through the town a bit to meet Maria, and then throws you into the level proper, Brookhaven Hospital. Here, Maria follows you around a bit before ultimately becoming tired and hanging out. And at the end, she gets got by Pyramid Head, and depending how little you allowed her to get got, it affects some of the invisible values for determining your ending. I've always found this a strange system, especially because, if you're unaware, the values that ultimately affect your ending are so esoteric. They just don't make... They kind of make sense, but in like a really... You really have to put on your thinking cap to get there. And that's always driven me crazy about this game. So many people try to use, for instance, the picture of Maria on things, not understanding that every time they do that, it is ticking up a little counter that is going to change your ending. Isn't that dumb? Isn't that just silly? I can't... Like, the game was made in 2001, so I'm glad people have learned from this, but I will never... I'll never get over that. And then I stopped playing it, and I came upon a different kind of revelation. The hospital level is the first area that is truly egregious, full of enemies, weird puzzles, and a true nightmare to traverse. And the whole time I was doing this, I kept thinking about the first Silent Hill and Signalis. Heck, the new Dead Space remake came out while I was working on this script, and that one in particular got me thinking about how my own tastes have developed for horror games. So I made the decision that James could never make for himself. I don't need to play through the whole game again. Nothing's going to change. And not in my own head, at least. Speaking of remakes, though, what the heck is going on with that Silent Hill 2 remake? Let's just take a little moment to talk about that. Is that really necessary? I've always considered a remake warranted when the version of the game could be brought more to fruition by modern technology and cultural development. Silent Hill 2 is unique to me in a way that I think they already did exactly what they set out to do. Porting James onto like a fake Leon S. Kennedy model and moving the camera behind his shoulder isn't going to bring much to the formula, I don't think. They should have remade like 1. Or even 4? I actually think... Now here's a hot one. I actually think Bloober Team would have been a great studio choice to remake Silent Hill 4, while we're sharing in strange opinions. They love heavy-handed metaphor with no nuance, and 4 is like a walking 5th grader's first poetry project. Well, that's enough about that. I think it's time we make our way to our special place. I will always be a fan of what Silent Hill brought me as a teen who was developing his own tastes and critical thinking skills. I will always treasure the thoughts originally provoked by this story and in the years since, but it just isn't my own personal masterpiece. And in the various ramblings I've made here today, I found some closure with my thoughts. Silent Hill 2 was carefully considered and meticulously executed to the best of the team's ability. It's a rare example of a game that I think fully executed on its vision, joining the ranks of other perfects perceived by the general populace like Super Mario Bros. Or Half-Life 2. Just think it out, you'll see what I mean. The magical reality that is so striking to me in Silent Hill 2 would later come to mature in my tastes with experiences like Kentucky Route Zero. So, thank you to the folks who made Silent Hill 2. Without it, I may have never considered the possibility that video games could tell stories more interesting than kill the bad guy or save the princess. And that would be the greatest regret in my life if that were to come to pass. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one. You know, for what it's worth, I know Masahiro Ito said that the body's in the car, but I think that's a little dumb. I think that only makes sense for the ending with the extra items. I think it ruins it if the body's literally there all the time. Because it paints James in like a totally different light. And while we're at it, I should do a video on 4 and talk about circumcision theory, everyone's favorite nonsense. Do you know what that is? These people are crazy.